What's going on, everybody? Gino coming at you again with another video. Today I'm going to be making a list of things that I need to do and get done with the Celica. Not only am I going to be working on the Celica, I got my little blackboard right here, and I'm going to make a little list of stuff that I want to get done. The reason why I'm making a list is because I'm working on the car in stages. So this is going to be like my stage 1 build part of the car before I go to a track day or drive it around on the road or something like that. So the first thing I want to get done on the car is stuff that doesn't require money. I'm going to save up around $2,000 and hopefully that will be enough to get it to that level mark that I want it to be at. So the first thing I want to do is remove all of the unnecessary stuff that I do not want in the car for the stage 1 process of the build. It's really hard to write with one hand. I'm gonna place this camera down. So, remove the unnecessary stuff. So, removing unnecessary stuff is definitely something that I'm doing. And something else I want to get done. This isn't being written in, I guess you could say, like a chronological order. This is being written as, you know, whichever one comes first. So, that doesn't mean me removing all the unnecessary stuff is gonna be the first thing I do, but it's one thing that I want to get done. The second thing I'm going to write is that I need to get this body painted. So, paint job. So after the paint job, something I wanted to do was, this I don't really count, I guess, as the paint job. So something I really wanted to do is I wanted to refinish or use a certain like Rust-Oleum paint. I know they make it. Rust-Oleum makes this trim restoring paint, so I want to get all the trim on the car back to looking black again, because even if I use like black trim restorer, I don't think that would do the job, and so I want to refinish the trim. Another thing that I want to do is I want to get a custom exhaust made for the car. I don't want to hear any leaks at all when I'm driving this car, and I also don't want it to be super obnoxiously loud, because some of the tracks in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, Connecticut do have sound decibel limits that have to be met. So a custom, not too quiet, but quiet enough exhaust to the point where I won't get in trouble. So another thing that I want to do is actually clean up the interior and not just vacuum it, but like really go into it, scrub it, get all the old stuff that was in there out of there. Clean up interior, that's the next step. What else do I need to do? Oh, another thing that I want to do is not bleed the clutch. Not bleeding the clutch. What was it? Oh, bleed the brakes and put fresh brake fluid in. Something I also have to check is, I don't know when last time the gear oil and the transmission's ever been changed and or looked at. Maybe that'll help with some of the sounds that are coming from the transmission. I doubt it. I think it might be a throwout bearing, release bearing, clutch situation, because the clutch does squeak a little bit when you put it down on the floor. The clutch may be relatively new, I'm not too sure, but I'm going to be changing the transmission fluid. So another thing that I have is I have this little note card that I made it earlier today. I have it right in front of me. I had to go get it just in case I forget anything that I forget to put on this list right here. So the next thing I have written down here is spark plug wires, which is actually something I need to get because I changed the spark plugs and tried to diagnose the hesitation issue. I don't think the spark plug wires could be the cause of the issue, but I wanted to change them anyway, so let me write that down. So the next thing I have written down here is to modify the fenders. Now, this isn't like for a performance thing, I guess you could say, but before I do the body work, I want to cut off those little metal tabs that stick out underneath the fender, because that's usually where the plastic fender liner will bolt in. I don't use that anymore, so I wanted to cut those tabs off so I can have the fenders nice and flush. So the last thing, actually no, 2 more things: register and insure the car. So I'll have that as a little side thing. But the last thing that I want to do is the car's having a little bit of an idling issue. Even when it's warmed up, it stays at like 1300 RPMs. And I don't think it's a vacuum thing. I'm able to adjust the idle with the screw actually on this throttle body. So I'm going to try and dial it down to like 750, 800. I think that's where the normal idle is at. So I'm going to write that down, adjust idle. So another thing that I'm actually going to do, as you can see that I wrote down, I don't know if you can really see it that well, but I'm going to sell stuff. And by sell stuff, I mean I have this old 1973 Dodge Dart that I parted out. It was a complete rot box. It was beyond the point of saving. There was nothing you can do. I mean, you could probably save it, but the parts, there was pretty much no original metal left on that car. It was a nightmare. So I parted it out, like the grill and the bumpers and all that good stuff, and I was going to refinish them and actually see if I can sell them on Craigslist for some decent money. I don't know how much they're worth. I'm sure they'd be worth way more on like eBay or something like that. But you know, shipping costs would be really high. I have to check up on that. Maybe on eBay I'd get more money for it. But yeah, part of what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cleaning up those parts and trying to sell them. Another thing that I'm going to be doing is every single time I get my paycheck, it's going to go into my account for like stuff for my car. But I'm also going to be putting a little bit of money aside until I save up $500. And with that $500, I'm going to be buying and selling cars, and buying and flipping cars that are typically around the $500 range, and fixing them, doing little things that increase the value. And if it has a little bit of a little problem that I know I can fix easily, then I'll fix it and I'll sell the car. And I want to get to the point where I can flip enough cars and keep putting money on that $500 limit. Like say if I buy a car for $500 and I sell it for $800, just to say, who knows, probably not, but just say I sell it for $800. I want to be able to put 200 of those dollars towards this $2,000 that I'm saving up, and I want to put the other $100 that I make and add that to the $500. So then I have a $600 budget next time I go buy another car, and I want to keep building that up and hopefully get to $1,000 or even more someday. But I'm going to start out with $500 and see where that gets me. So yeah, now that I have all of this stuff written down, I'm going to get to work on the Celica. I'm going to start by jacking up the car and pulling the front wheels off and seeing what I have to work with. I'm actually going to be taking that entire exhaust off that I built, and I'm going to take it off from that stainless steel downpipe. I'm going to keep my steel pipe in there just so I can have that O2 sensor plugged in, but everything from that point and back is going to be cut off and taken off the car just because it's all rotted and it's not worth saving, and it'll just save me time in the long run for when I get that custom exhaust built for the car. I'm not sure how much a custom exhaust is going to take to build. I hope it's not too much. My hope, since this exhaust system on the car is not too complicated, that it'll be around $1,200, and then I'll spend the rest of that insuring and getting the paint job done on the car and all the little things. It's probably going to take more than $2,000, but I'm in no rush. It's not that the season's over, it is August, but I don't want to just get the car running and driving and then take it right to an event. I want to drive it on the street first, see what it's got. I don't know how the car is going to react to certain things, and I just want to feel it out. And then I'll take it on the track come, I don't know, I'm probably going to be driving it all winter. It's going to be my winter car, probably all winter long. And after winter, then comes racing, and I am super excited. This is the stage 1 part of the build, and I'm like super amped for like all this stuff that I'm gonna do. So this is it, man. This is it. All this stuff, which isn't that bad actually. It just requires money. That's why I'm going to start by doing all... Forget this Mopar thing. My sister made that, and I thought it just looked really cool, so I left it there. This has nothing to do with Toyotas. So I got to do all this stuff. I'm going to start with the stuff that doesn't require any money, just to get it out of the way. And by the time I'm done with all that stuff, maybe I'll have the cash. Who knows? So remove unneeded stuff. I'm going to start with that. It is the first on the list. I know I said I'm not going to be doing stuff in like order, but it is free, and it is something that just needs to get done. So yeah, let's do it, guys. So now that I have the car jacked in the air, I'm going to start by taking off this wheel right here, and so I can get to this pressure, the windshield washer fluid reservoir. I think the pump that actually works it is broken. It doesn't do anything, so it's just full of fluid and doesn't do anything, so I'm just going to remove it. I don't really care much about washing the windows, so let's get started. Alright, it's getting late and the sun's going down. I'm getting to the point where I can't really see, so I'm going to pick this back up on another day when I actually have time. As you can kind of see, no, you can't really see. Well, I took the fender off, so I'll catch you guys later. So I just finished taking everything out. Everything is in. I took the washer fluid thing out. I took the fender off. And this little clip right here was the thing that went to the motor that pumped the fluid. I took the lines out that go underneath the hood. I clipped this right here so it doesn't dangle around. This is the light bulb that goes to the side of the fender. And I'm going to mark this with some tape and a marker saying that this is for the windshield washer fluid motor. So if I ever take this harness apart, I'll know exactly what it is and I won't confuse myself. And it'll remind me that I deleted it off the car. So the next plan of action is I'm going to take the front bumper off. So I'm going to take the front bumper off and I'm going to take this fender off. And I'm going to completely go over it. There's still some air intake ducting I have to take off over here from when I changed the intake. I'm just kind of gonna go like over this front end of the car, you know, see if I can fix up this trim that I'd taken off around the lights. Actually, I actually took this trim piece off the lights, and this one's part of the bumper. I'm gonna clean them up and use that Rust-Oleum rubber trim paint to fix them. I'm going to take this wheel off, finish taking off this ducting, take this fender completely off. We'll see what we get to work with here. There's a lot of like junk and stuff that needs to be cleaned up. So I'm going to go through it and let's see what happens. So I just took this like front trim piece off that sits in there like this, right there. And there's like a bunch of junk in it. And these screens are freaking, all they're doing is holding junk inside of it. I'm guessing that's what the point is, but look at all this. Jesus. I'm gonna have to vacuum all this stuff up. I'm gonna do that now. So I disassembled the entire front end. I took the front bumper off, and I'm gonna put the styrofoam back in just in case I crash, which I'm not likely on doing, but apparently there used to be like black tabs here. I took them off and now you can actually see the color of the car on these, like these pieces right here, which I think looks way better than those black tabs. And I took this fender off, so now the only thing to do is to take this intake box off. And there's one more thing, actually two more things I have to do before I put everything back together. So the first thing is that I'm gonna take the front shocks off, because when the car sits on the ground, it kind of sits unlevel in the front. And I think that's because when I took the shocks off the first time, I was just messing with them to see, you know, like if there were the serviceable ones or not. I didn't know, so I just took them apart to check. This is when I first got the car. I might have put the top hats on wrong because they're on a bit of like an inverted opposite direction, so one might be in and one might be out, and the car might be like leaning in one direction. So I'm gonna take them off, see how they should be, and I'm gonna change it back up. I might take the springs off too, because there are these little they're the dry rotted piece of rubber that hold the spring on, which is to reduce noise, which I don't really care about that much. And I could have placed that wrong, and that could be the reason why the car is sitting on a different angle. I don't know, but I definitely know that's the reason why the car's sitting crooked. So right now I'm just gonna get my degreaser and just kind of wipe down the areas that I vacuumed. And I'm gonna clean up the front of this bumper right here. I'm gonna clean up all this stuff, like all this stuff underneath, just to get it off. And then I'm gonna start the work on the shocks. We're gonna be all good. Probably didn't need to take all this off, but I wanted to anyway, just to see how you do it. And you know, I'm okay with that. At least I have everything off now, so I can vacuum this crap. And yeah, let's get started. Or I'm already started. I guess let's get to it, because we already been doing it, and all I gotta do is take this bad boy off. So I'm gonna stop working on the car. It's getting really cloudy, as you can see. It looks like it's gonna rain, which I think it said in the forecast that it was gonna rain. So I'm gonna pack everything up and probably work on the car tomorrow. I don't know, I have work tomorrow, but maybe tomorrow? I don't know. Help, I don't know. All right guys, I'm back. It did rain for a little while, but I think it's like 2 days later. We're gonna get back to work on the Celica. Of course, you know me. I was working, and it's a little late now, but we should have some daylight for some daylight savings, for the daylight hours, to keep working on this car and get her up and running. She's almost there. Almost there. Let's get it done. Let's get her done. Let's get her done. Alright, so I'm back. It's been a couple days. I've been working a lot. Now I'm gonna get back to working on the car. These shocks right here, I took these off when I first got the car. I was just kind of going over everything, and I think I installed them wrong because the car kind of has a little bit of a lean to it in the front. So I think I have the top hats backwards or something like that, because they're the kind of top hats that have like a little angle lean to them. So I'm gonna take them both off and lean them up like the exact way I took them off, so I can compare the two and see what I messed up. And then I'm gonna reinstall them, and I'm gonna put the fenders back on. And my dog's barking for no reason. Then I'm gonna fill that transmission with fluid, and let's see what happens. So a slight problem occurred. The top hat ended up being seized to the top of the tower. This piece right here, it was like stuck on top and wouldn't come out. And I was like, what the hell? Like, everything was free, all the bolts are free, and it was like stuck. And it was wedged up against this little bolt sticking out right here that goes to something in the engine bay. And I think that's because I think that's why the car sat funny. I didn't position this right, and the car sat kind of cockeyed, because as you can see where it sits on the actual tower. This part right here, this is like the mounting plate to like the shock and everything. It's like slanted. You have to position the shock and the coil spring correctly, so if you put it in wrong, it'll sit funny. But a little problem that occurred, since I kind of just wanted, I didn't put any coil spring things on this. I made sure to stand really far. It was like seized in there, so me putting the coil spring compressor on this wouldn't do anything. The force of the coil shooting down was gonna be the only thing to free this. I was hitting with a hammer, I was using this crowbar, and I just couldn't get it free. So I stood on the opposite side of the engine bay, protected myself, and slowly with the wrench loosened the top nut and let it shoot down. And I think the bearing was bad anyway. The top hat bearing that spins on top, it goes right here, exploded. So I think I need a new one of those bearings. I don't know if these are like some kind of a press fit. I don't think so. I think you just kind of place them on there like that, and then you place this like that. I think these are one piece and you can just put them in there. But the bearing exploded, and all the little bearing balls that were inside of it are all over the place now. So I need new bearings for this, which isn't really a big deal. These also, this is like a little thing where your coil spring sits. These aren't really needed. These are mostly for vibrations. So what this does is, so you have your shock and strut assembly. Oh my god, the camera's just like falling. So you have your shock and strut assembly. You put this on like this. This sits on the bottom. This is where your coil spring would sit. Then I'm pretty sure this little, the place where the coil springs are compact more, go on the bottom like that. So that sits up. Probably needs to be positioned in a little bit better, just like that. I'll look at the other side for comparison. And obviously your bearing would go on. This is like a top piece that sits on the top of your strut assembly for noise reduction, but it's all dry rotted, so it's kind of useless. Then you'd put your top hat thing on. This is like the pre-top hat. This is what actually like clamps to the top of the spring. Then you put your actual top hat, which is your mounting point. This is kind of very crude how I'm doing it, but this is how it actually is supposed to be assembled. And then you put that on, and then you'd go ahead and mount it in the car. But since the bearing kind of exploded, plus I don't know how good of shocks these are, I think these are actually serviceable. So I'm gonna check and see what kind of shocks are inside of this and see if they are serviceable or not, and I'm gonna see what's up with that. It has like one of these servicing collars on it, so I can spin that off and take the shock out of the strut assembly. So I'm gonna see what the shock condition is like. So I was actually wrong. This flat piece right here is what faces upwards. Another thing that I did is I actually got all the bearing balls, greased them, and put them back in. Well, I used the grease that was already in there, and I just kind of wiped them with my fingers, and just to put the balls back in there. I don't think that's gonna do absolutely nothing. That doesn't solve the problem. I don't know. I tried taking that collar off, by the way, and it was just kind of seized on there, and I tried using a flathead screwdriver, tried to spin it off, but it just wasn't budging. I didn't want to break it. These are stock OEM shocks, probably the ones that came with the car. I'm gonna be switching to a coilover suspension in the future, so I just put those back together just so I can reassemble it. I have it set in the correct order that it needs to be assembled. I'm gonna wait for a second. I'm not gonna put these rubber vibration dampener spring things on. They were actually making it sit funny. I'm gonna keep these off. It's probably because this one's all dry rotted and disappeared, and this one's actually in good condition, so it makes it a little cockeye. I'm gonna assemble that for now, leave that in like the assembling form for now, take apart the other side and see how that side's set up, because that side actually looks really good. And then I'm gonna put this one back together and then put them both back into place. So I got the suspension all back together, put together correctly, tightened. I put some Loctite on the bolts. They're all set up perfectly, exactly how they were supposed to be. That's definitely going to fix the problem when I drop the car back down on the ground, because I looked at them and compared the two, both when they were wrong, and one of them was lower and higher and it was all over the place, but now they're perfectly even. So when I drop the car back down on the ground, it should be all good. I also marked this a while ago, saying that this is the plug for the windshield wiper, and I attach it up here. Just in case I ever take this harness out or do a standalone ECU or something like that, I can trace these wires back and know what it's for, so it's nothing important that I need to run on an ECU or something like that. But it's all back together. I'm gonna head to the gym right now. It's gonna close at 6 o'clock, so I'm gonna hit it while it's still daylight, and I'll come back and I'm gonna put only one of the fenders on. I'm gonna put the fender on this side because I do want to do that transmission fluid. I think I'm going to save that for another episode. I'm going to finish off this episode by putting this fender back on, and the next episode I want to be draining that transmission fluid and putting new fluid in there. So let me just hit the gym real quick and I'll be right back.